And that's the story of Super Turricane. Early 1990s Commodore 64 game. There was a metal guy, and he had a gun, I think, and also you fly a ship that one... No. How the hell does Brentalfloss do this shit? Well, there goes that side project. Back to the grindstone, I guess. Oh, hi, I'm the Game Overthinker. Bored out of my fucking mind. It's getting to the point where even my arcade-perfect port of Secret Agent can't keep my interest. I mean, I love this game, but how many times can I play through it?
Have you tried pretending that the hero is actually Sterling Archer?
For I am a sinner in the hands of an angry god. Bloody Mary, full of vodka, blessed are you among cocktails. Pray for me now, and at the hour of my death, which I hope is soon. Amen.
Okay, that's an idea. And now I'm bored again. You know, guys, the fact is, ever since Commissioner Bunnyface found out that the Retro Thinker had actually been the Necro Thinker that one time, shipped him off to a Cobalt Core black site for interrogation, and stranded us here under house arrest with the guy posted at the door, things have just been kinda slow and dull, and we're kinda going out of our minds here.
And yet somehow you still find time to shill your book.
Oh, you mean Super Mario Bros. 3 Brick by Brick, a step-by-step novelized let's play and artistic analysis of the greatest game ever made, now available from fangamer.net in print or ebook format?
Yeah. So, we could always review some games.
Firstly, because this is a commentary and analysis series, not a review show.
I know, I've seen the traffic numbers.
Secondly, which new games? Everyone already knows that Saints Row 4 is great, and beyond that, we're in that lull period until the Xbone and the PS4 come out.
Ah, yes, the doldrums between the end of one console generation and the beginning of the next.
Excuse me, Ivan, the next generation began last year when the Wii U came out.
The Wii what?
The machine that plays Earthbound.
But sir, the Wii U fails to meet certain wholly arbitrary technical milestones that for some reason we've been using to delineate console generations since the end of the 64-bit era. Doesn't that mean it can't be next-gen?
Only if you're going to be a smug, pedantic twit about it, and there's nothing in the rules of games journalism that says I have to be a smug... pedant... Well, butter my butt and call me bread.
Why not do a Best of Generation 7 list?
No.
Why not?
1, I don't want to. 2, I really don't want to. 3, everyone is doing that at this point. 4, I don't want to.
Okay.
Besides, it'd be completely meaningless.
Why?
Because I never bought a PS3. I was totally cut off from like a third of this generation's major console releases.
Technically, since most PS3 and 360 releases were multi-platform, it's more like you mixed out on a sixth. Maybe.
Okay, that's true, but still.
And besides, you also never owned a PSP or a PSP Go or a PS Vita or an N-Gage or an iPad, and you don't touch PC exclusives.
Ivan, our PC can barely handle rendering this show, and you're not really making an argument as to why my top 10 list wouldn't be completely meaningless.
That's not the point.
Then what is your point?
That they're all meaningless.
Huh?
All reviews are subjective, yes?
Yes.
And all critics and journalists, however objective, are shaped by their own likes, dislikes, and worldviews, right?
Yes.
And none of them can possibly play every game to 100% completion, correct?
Yes.
So if even the guys who did play the majority of major releases for the three main consoles are going to have gaps and blind spots in their backgrounds, does that really make their opinions that much more valid than yours?
Yes, it does. But I do get where you're coming from. Hey, let's ask Door Guy. Hey, Door Guy!
Ja?
I know you can hear us in here. What do you think? Should I do the list show or not?
Ja, do the list und so on.
Hey, are you German?
Ja!
Hey, Ivan, Door Guy is German.
Nifty.
Look, just do the list. Don't worry about the meaning. Most best-of lists are journalistic filler, a method of filling time in slow periods by repurposing a bunch of opinions that you already published. Why shouldn't you get in on that action too? Besides, this opening sketch has gone on far too long and is not funny.
Okay, alright, I'm convinced. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Game Overthinker's completely meaningless Top 10 of Generation 7 show! Let's get this party started. Number 10, Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite.
You're really going to cheat and do a tie right off the bat?
I think it's justified.
Why not just say the Bioshock franchise?
Well, because Bioshock 2 was so completely
Oh, right. Carry on.
At this point, what else can you say about Bioshock, a game that saw into the future of just how bland and homogenous first-person shooters would soon become this generation, and instead posited that the genre could tell an engaging story, deliver a powerful philosophical argument, and take place in a gorgeously original world. And while it certainly took long enough to happen, the true follow-up in Bioshock Infinite took things to a whole other level. Are these games flawed? Absolutely, hence why they aren't up higher on the list. But I just couldn't leave them out in good conscience. The first encounter with a Big Daddy, the Columbia Street Fair, Andrew Ryan, Zachary Comstock, Elizabeth, the Ludices.
Number 9, No More Heroes.
And the internet begins giving us shit because you counted Wii games in the same generation as 360 and PS3 games. Now.
Are you gonna have some snarky shit to say about every pick on the list, Ivan?
No. Maybe. Probably. Yes.
What is your deal today?
House arrest sucks. I've got cabin fever so bad.
Ivan, it was my understanding that you, like all fairies, are a trans-dimensional being, correct?
Yeah, so?
Doesn't that mean that you're not bound by the laws of space and time and can in fact go wherever you want, whenever you want?
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
For reasons that, believe me, we'll talk about momentarily, the Wii was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, stories of this generation, based of course on the impact of its attention-grabbing motion control. But the sub-story of the Wii was how few in the industry outside of Nintendo's internal development wanted to take a chance on them. And even fewer managed to do it right, but leave it to Suda51 to be in the high echelon of that few. There was a lot to recommend in No More Heroes, from its knowing pop-cultural satire, to its effective button-pushing edge, to an immensely memorable cast of characters, to an effective satire of the tedious open-world busywork that came to dominate so much of Western game design. But what pushed it over the edge for me was the unique way it utilized the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, finding a happy medium between conventional button-and-stick combat and big dramatic gestures for wrestling throws and immensely cathartic finishing sword strikes. Yes, there were some clunky and bothersome moments. Yes, the sequel was somewhat disappointing, but in a gaming scene that had been dominated for too long by empty vessel avatars, Travis Touchdown loomed large and in charge. The sleazy, deplorable bastard as hero handled right, a trick some games could have learned a lesson from.
Number 8, the Data East Arcade Classic Collection.
You must be joking.
About what, and how was Paris?
Magical. You cannot put that on the list.
Why not?
Seriously? Because it's not from this generation. It's a retro compilation. From arcades, no less.
Wait, why is it significant that it's an arcade collection? Arcades are a vital piece of our—
Sir, look, I understand that the 80s and 90s arcade scene was a big, formative deal for people of your generation, but the vast majority of arcade games were fundamentally flawed in that they were designed around cheaping players out of their quarters rather than delivering satisfying narrative or gameplay experience. As such, they don't really belong in a serious-minded discussion of games as an artistic medium, no more than one real Nickelodeon shorties belong in a film class.
Says who?
Says a growing number of game critics and commentators who, by virtue of age or temperament, are capable of viewing that era of gaming clearly, untainted by the nostalgia that informs your particular perspective, sir.
Huh. Well, in that case, they're fucking wrong.
And here we go.
You cannot meaningfully view the history of the medium without the arcades. That's like ignoring silence when talking about movie history. Yes, they were designed to make money, but it's not like games from now are all free. The arcade era was the birthplace of this whole goddamn medium. It can't be ignored. There was, in fact, a lot of amazing stuff there, and that's not nostalgia talking. That's truth. And that's why the Data East collection makes the list. It was actually the tail end of last generation that saw the golden moment for classic game compilations, a genre that's been more or less rendered obsolete by the arrival of download services like Virtual Console. And while it can't come close to matching the tender loving care that went into a title like the Activision Anthology, this was a great set. Made even greater by the presentation and the fact that these aren't really games you've been able to get in prior collections. The authentic arcade versions of Bad Dudes, Secret Agent, Crude Buster, relative rarities like Wizard Fire and Lock and Chase, this is a cross-section of vital video game history and the only place some folks might get a chance to be exposed to them.
But sir, this is like putting a mixtape up for a Grammy.
I'd say it's more like praising an exceptionally well-arranged soundtrack album.
Which I still wouldn't put up for any kind of accolade.
Says the guy who owns the Forrest Gump soundtrack on like 5 different formats.
Ivan likes that movie.
Number 7. Call of...
Really?
Yes.
A Call of Duty game.
Yes.
From you.
Will you let me finish?
Yeah, you know what? I'm hanging back. I want to hear the rest of this one.
Number 7. Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, and Spec Ops The Line. Yes, this one's another tie.
Well played, sir. Well played.
How did you just clap right now?
I don't know.
Look, love them or hate them, can't get enough or just had it up to here with the military shooters becoming the biggest genre of console gaming possibly ever if we're talking sales numbers and cultural visibility. That might be the single biggest, most definitive storyline of this entire generation of gaming. And that's because it's part of a bigger story. You just can't look at popular culture in this period without bumping up against the context of the so-called War on Terror and the lingering effects of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. It affected the mindset of a generation and rewrote the book on popular culture. It's hard to remember, but realistic modern-day military games were pretty much a niche genre since graphical realism and physics were still pretty new, and when it came to shooters, mainstream gamers had overwhelmingly seemed to prefer historical periods, well, okay, pretty much just European theater World War II, and futuristic fantasy settings to realism. By 2007, the nightly news had been dominated by 2 Middle Eastern wars for 6 years. One way or another, the Bush era was on its way to an ending, and with Osama bin Laden still then in the wind, catharsis had been long in coming. Especially since, outside of isolated examples like 24, Hollywood had shown an impressive restraint in not flooding theaters and airwaves with feel-good pro-war revenge fantasies for the most part. So when Activision announced that the next Call of Duty would jump into the modern War on Terror setting, well, whatever their actual intent was, what they were offering was more than just another game. In many ways, they were offering people a chance to feel like they had some level of control over something at least reminiscent of the wars and everything connected to them. That it was actually a solid shooter with a finely tuned multiplayer engine was, frankly, icing on the cake. Either way, it helped usher in an entirely new cultural paradigm. Video games, specifically the AAA shooter scene, as the right-of-center, reflexively militaristic counterpoint to an otherwise more progressive, war-skeptical entertainment industry. More and more, gaming in the post-Call of Duty age was looking less like itself and more like Ted Nugent's wet dream, which ultimately engendered a response in the form of Spec Ops The Line, which took the militaristic streak of modern gaming out behind the woodshed in the context of a so-called art game that was also a lot of fun to play, if occasionally downright morbid. Taken as a whole, these two games represent the whole arc of a unique and troubling moment in the history of the medium.
Alright, moving on.
Number 6, Mega Man 9. Well,
I got nothing.
Getting back to the basics of long-lived franchises by embracing the retro aesthetic at a professional level became a full-blown thing this generation with somewhat mixed results. But Capcom's Mega Man 9 was a home run. This is the throwback that went all the way, understood that the devil was in the details, and got the balance between something familiar and something new in a way that most glorified fan games just didn't. I'd spend more time talking about it, but that's really kind of the gist of it. Mega Man 9 was a perfect 9th Mega Man game. Bottom line.
Number 5, Braid.
I thought you said Braid was unbelievably pretentious.
I did. Braid is unbelievably pretentious.
I see.
I also called it a twee hipster wankfest.
And it makes the list because?
Because it's a really, really good twee hipster wankfest.
Braid probably wasn't the game that invented taking the skeleton of an instantly recognizable retro game, draping it in the visual aesthetic of a wall mural in a vegan co-op used bookstore in a gentrified neighborhood, and a 19-year-old wannabe poet's version of jaded romantic tragedy, but it was the game that turned that basic setup into the go-to recipe for success in that bizarre moment in indie gaming when everyone wanted to be Wes Anderson. but god damn, it was such a good game. Controls well, graphics were solid, somehow managed to make reskinning Super Mario Bros. For the billionth time seem fresh and original, and yes, the terribly earnest final twist was pretty welcome tweaking of the Save the Princess archetype. So yeah, I'm as sick of everything Braid inspired as everyone else, but the core game really was that damn good.
Number 4, Tomb Raider. Okay, guys, you ready? You ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Sam! This game was really fucking good, though.
Of all the 80s and 90s revivals undertaken this generation, none was more loaded than the prospect of giving gaming's most visible female protagonist, who unfortunately quickly became better known as its first breakout sex symbol, a more developed character makeover, especially after a similar attempt involving the other First Lady of Gaming wound up being one of the most controversial titles of the decade. The end result is, to be frank, a bizarre animal, a story, setting, aesthetic, and supporting cast that could have come right out of a mid-80s Indiana Jones knockoff from Canon or Golan Globus, inexplicably headlined by a masterfully well-rounded, well-written, flawed, and relatable yet fully heroic female protagonist who apparently grows up to be the one-note sneering pinup we remember from the originals. Whatever. On its own, Tomb Raider was awesome. Gorgeous, fun to play, silly without being stupid, and genuinely compelling on a narrative and character level. Hell, it even did QuickTime events well.
Well, I've got to say, sir, I was expecting this to be a lot more controversial.
Number 3, Wii Sports.
Oh, there it is.
9. I cannot stand by for this blasphemy any longer.
Apparently, Door Guy would like to contribute something. Door Guy?
Wii Sports was not a game, it was a floor show, a tech demo at the most. A simple showcase for motion control gimmickry that wasn't even true one-to-one yet. Sure, it was fun to play, maybe with your family or drunk friends over the holidays, but this is no game, this is a children's toy. A lack of depth and sickening casualness being the early warning of the epic fail that was the Wii. And this is your number 3? From a generation that gave us Skyrim, Killzone, Gears of War, Assassin's Creed? No wonder they imprisoned you here. You are terrible at this job, and you should feel terrible about it.
Are you finished?
Yeah.
Then shouldn't you be back guarding the door?
Yeah.
Is he a bad guy or just an annoying new friend?
Does it matter at this point?
Wii Sports is not a game I'm terribly fond of. In fact, I might not actually have played the version of it that came with my Wii. It's not the reason I bought the system, it's not something I revisit, it's not one of my favorite games by even the broadest measure of the term. However, Wii Sports is a fantastic game. It does exactly what it sets out to do. It's damn fun, and the fact that its success and failures exist 100% removed from the narrow AAA narrative multiplayer achievement paradigm of quantifying games cannot change the fact that, strictly in terms of its impact on the industry, this might have been the most important game of this generation, and indeed one of the most important landmarks in the medium's history. Yeah, I said it. Wii Sports belongs on that timeline with Space War, Pong, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Ultima, Super Mario Bros., Zelda, Oregon Trail, Sonic, Doom, Star Fox. You get the idea. It should be up there with those. Hell, you could probably put it up with even the more exclusive list of games that made vast numbers of gamers out of folks who otherwise never would have played, i.e. rarity titles like Pokemon, Tetris, and the various NES pack-ins. Plus, damn it, even if you don't necessarily pull it out and play now, Wii Sports was a global phenomenon those first few years, largely because it was fun to play. It started a vital discussion on non-traditional interfaces that we're still in the process of having. Love it or hate it, Wii Sports was one of the biggest thing to happen in the medium in this or any other generation.
Number 2, Super Mario Galaxy.
Wow, I think this is the only Mario game on the list. How much restraint did that take?
Quite a bit.
Okay, so the broader Mario franchise has at this point taken to resting on its laurels a bit via the perfectly adequate but fairly unspectacular new Super Mario Bros. Series. Resting on laurels being something you're allowed to do when you've been the vanguard and backbone of a medium for 25 years and counting. And also when you're still capable of headlining a major release as spectacular as Super Mario Galaxy. At once a love letter to longtime series fans and a fresh upheaval of familiar gameplay conceits, the two Galaxy titles serve as necessary reminders of why this is the franchise from which all of post-Crash gaming has sprung. Visually spectacular, musically thrilling, deftly straddling the whimsical and the awe-inspiring, built around gameplay so tight it feels inadequate to simply call it well-balanced. There can't help but be a strong undercurrent of nostalgia to a Mario game at this point, but the callbacks and legacy mining here were hitting something deeper. This is a Mario game that looked, sounded, and felt like my dreams and memories of the Mario games I grew up with. In many ways, Mario has become akin to Mickey Mouse, a character who has come to transcend his own medium into something bigger, but also intangible and non-specific. But Mario Galaxy was an inspiring reminder that underneath all the brown shooters, microtransactions, multiplayer harassment, and sundry AAA bloat, the heart and soul of video games lives on.
Luma Lee, Luma Bop, welcome to the Luma Shop!
Welcome to the Luma Shop indeed, Ivan. Welcome to the Luma Shop indeed. And the Game Overthinker's choice for number 1 game of this generation is... Batman Arkham Asylum.
Huh.
Yeah, I wish I had something edgy or controversial, some smaller, obscure title to drop in here for the top spot, anything other than a big, glossy AAA multi-platform licensed title, but god damn, Arkham Asylum was fucking awesome. Here's the thing, even if this wasn't a Batman game, Arkham would have been just as good. The gameplay was good, the art design was good, the music was good, the detective mode mechanic was brilliantly implemented, and the chained attack combat mechanic was absurdly well designed. It's a rock-solid piece of work from start to finish, and then they added Batman. There's an art to making a good game out of a licensed property. You're not just adapting the story and characters, you're offering people a chance to inhabit that world and interact with it. And that so few licenses get that right is the reason people are so fond of the titles that did. The TMNT and Simpsons arcade games, NES Batman, Spider-Man 2, for some reason the Riddick game, you know the titles. But this one, holy shit! Somehow these guys managed to stir over 70 years of history for this character and the myriad adaptations that have come before into one simply incredible package. More so than any of the recent movies, this felt like you were actually running, climbing, and fighting in Batman's world. And more importantly, you felt like Batman. I'm as surprised as you are, but for me, this was the rare total package.
And there you have it, folks. The Game Overthinker's completely meaningless top 10 of Generation 7 show. I hope you enjoyed it.
Feel any better?
A little bit, yeah. I just wish we knew where the Retro Thinker was. Have you been making any headway on that front?
Not yet. They call them black sites for a reason. Finding someone Cobalt Core doesn't want found would take connections we just don't have.
And even if we did find him, we couldn't get him out of there. I mean, those Cobalt Core mercs are straight-up Soldier of Fortune types. Stone killers. Otherwise, why don't you think I've killed Door Guy yet? And with Omega Thinker gone back to the future, who do we know who's even close to being as good as they are? Perhaps that's the wrong question. Perhaps your question should be, whom do you know that's worse than them? Mr. Phibb. To what do I owe the pleasure? Don't mind me, Overthinker. Just moving the plot along. Well, that was needlessly cryptic.
How fucked up is your life that what is almost certainly the devil is not the most unusual or dangerous person who routinely shows up in your house?
I try not to dwell on it. Keep up the search.
Hey, yeah, buddy, you're a little early. Shift change ain't for another 20. And them pants ain't regulation either, soldier. You'd best get back to your bunker and...
Oh yeah, kid. Hashtag spoiler alert.
Surprise! Stay away from me. Come on, we gotta go. How the hell can I trust you? I know exactly who you are. You're the one who started all of this. The greatest evil the Overthinker ever fought. You. The Anti-Thinker.
Look, there's no time to explain, but I'm fighting for the good guys this time. You gotta believe me, and we gotta go.
I don't believe you.
How do I know you've turned away from the dark side or whatever, huh?
Come on, we don't got much time, and you should probably take this. Now move it, kid. We're going out of here hot.